Shin Gi Tai. You might have heard about this before. A lot of people online and in books write about Shin Gi Tai. But honestly, I think too few people actually apply the wisdom of Shin Gi Tai. Now, what is Shin Gi Tai? I'll tell you. This is the Japanese sign for Shin, which is the first Shin and means mind, your mind. Next, Gi. And this is not the same Gi as what I'm wearing, okay? This is another Gi, also known as Waza. And it means technique. Let's just say tech for now, technique. That's the Japanese sign if anyone is interested. And then finally, Shin Gi Tai, the third pillar of this concept. Also known as karada, and this is also known as kokoro, because in Japanese, all of these kanji, these signs, have different pronunciations. But for now, it's Shin Gi Tai. And Tai, the final one, means the physical or the body. Physical. Okay, so what's the deal about Shin Gi Tai? Well, Shin Gi Tai, together, all these three will describe the perfect karate practitioner or a master, so to speak. The idea is that whatever we do in karate, no matter if you're doing a punch or kick or fighting or grappling or doing a kata or competing or grading, you're always manifesting and expressing your mind, your body, and technique. And the ideal karate practitioner, the perfect karate nerd, should have all three of these in perfect alignment. Like this. Shin Gi Tai. A perfect triangle. Now, usually this is not the case. Most of us are either very much in our heads. That means we are strong in the Shin department. Or perhaps we are very technical. We are strong in the Gi characteristic. Or maybe we are naturally gifted with a good physique, so we're very physical. That means we are strong in the Tai. So, if we are strong in any of these, naturally we'll be weak in another area, which means that the triangle is not perfectly balanced. Usually, for most people, the triangle will look like this. See that? Shin Gi Tai. It pulls here because it's stronger and weaker there. Or maybe it's like this. See? It is almost never a perfect triangle for most karate practitioners. We have a part in Shin Gi Tai that is stronger and a part in Shin Gi Tai that is weaker. So, remember, this is what we want to strive for. Now let's look closer at these three different pillars of Shin Gi Tai. What are some different attributes of Shin? In fact, we can do like this. Shin. Think about what different mental attributes or capacities are there. And how can you improve them if that's what you need? Well, for example, maybe we can put motivation, determination, patience, humility. These are different characteristics of Shin, the mind, or the soul. Because in Japanese, your soul, your mind, your spirit, all of these, and your heart are basically considered the same thing. And they're all written with the same kanji. Next, Gi. Technical attributes. This is perhaps easier to understand because the technical is something that we see immediately, but we don't really see our thoughts or our mindset, right? So, technical is kicks, punches, blocks, stances, strikes, all of these things that consist of technique in how you do something as opposed to what you do. And many people are very strong in the technical department. They know exactly how many degrees your wrist should be and these kinds of things. And then finally we have physical, Tai. What physical attributes are there? Well, we got like power, speed, flexibility, mobility, so on and so forth. Agility. Okay, I'm not going to write everything. So, now that you have a brief overview over what Shin Gi Tai is, what the goal is to have them all perfectly balanced, and what each of these three include, then here is what I think is the most interesting thing about Shin Gi Tai. You see, you can use Shin Gi Tai as a high-performance assessment tool or as a way to figure out how to develop yourself or your students, and even how to figure out how to beat an enemy if you're an athlete, an opponent, using this framework of Shin Gi Tai. So, let me just remove this. So, if you are a karate practitioner or student, practitioner or slash student, or if you are a karate athlete, or if you are a karate instructor or teacher, then I think that you should use Shin Gi Tai as a practical way of measuring what you are doing and what you should be doing, what you should be focusing on to optimize whatever you want to achieve depending on who you are. An athlete wants to win medals if you're a karate athlete. A karate practitioner or karate student wants to develop himself or herself and perhaps achieve black belt or something like that. And of course, a karate instructor or teacher wants to make his or her students better than him or her, right? And we can use the knowledge of Shin Gi Tai to reach these goals depending on no matter who we are. Here's how I do it. This is a graph, and we got these three parts: Shin Gi Tai, Shin Gi Tai, and the perfect karateka, karate practitioner, whether you're a student, an athlete, or an instructor, you should have all three in balance, like we said with the triangle, right? However, few of us have all these in perfect order or balance. So what I suggest you do, and this requires a little bit of self-reflection or self-awareness, I want you to ask yourself, which one of these three, the mind, the body, and the technique, is my strongest and which is my weakest? And this is so important for you to know so that you're not wasting your time practicing something you're already super good at and ignoring what you're bad at. Because that's what people usually do. If I am really good in Thai, if I'm really good with the body, the physical, then usually I will be bad, or not usually, but sometimes perhaps, in the technical. So maybe my technical is low, but my physical is super high, and my mental abilities are pretty much average. Then what I should be doing is focusing less on the physical and more on the technical, right? But what usually happens is people who have this kind of disposition, they just try to ignore technical details and cover it up by doing stuff faster and harder instead, which are physical attributes. On the other hand, there are those who, for example, are really good at the technical. So we have a lot of the gi, the technique, perhaps to overcompensate because we're not really good at the physical stuff. So instead of trying to push ourselves harder, we stop and focus on these tiny details, the angles of certain blocks and stuff, even though maybe that doesn't really matter. Of course, up to a certain point, it's important. But when we do stuff just to escape from other stuff, then that's not a good idea. So, and of course, the same goes for Shin, the mental capacity as well, or attributes. What I want you to do, after you ask yourself, what is my strong part and what is my weak part? Then I want you to write that down. In order. So let's say you are really strong mentally. You have a champion's mindset, a winner's mind. Then Shin should be your number one, right? And write this down on a post-it or just a piece of paper. And then figure out what's your second best. Okay, maybe you are a good technician. So, Gi is number two. And then perhaps you're not good physically, so Tai will be number three. Then here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask a good friend of yours, a dojo mate, a dojo buddy, somebody from your dojo, perhaps even your sensei. And I want you to ask them to write the same for you. So you want them to think about what your strong point and your weak point is. And here's the interesting thing. Maybe they don't write the same as you do. Maybe they actually have a different opinion. And this is crucial because usually we have an image of ourselves, a self-image, a reality that doesn't really align with what people around us think about us. And that could be based on stories we've been telling ourselves since we were kids, probably, of our worldview, right? So maybe your sensei will write something different, or your friend, depending on who you ask. And then comes the interesting part. If you notice that, well, hey, maybe my friend or my sensei wrote that actually my technique is better than my mindset. And maybe my mindset is worse than my physical capacity. Then, as you compare these two notes or lists, you start coming up with things that you need to practice instead of things that you think you need to practice. And that's the important thing, because usually as karate practitioners or students, we don't really know what's most important for us to practice. We think we do, but we don't really. So that's number one. If you're a practitioner or karate student, what you can do. Then next, if you're a karate athlete, you can use the Shin Gi Tai framework on your opponent. So let's say you are fighting someone, okay, for kumite. And you do the same thing. You do a list, but not for yourself, because we already covered that. You should always know yourself, but also know your enemy, as the saying goes. So by figuring out if your opponent is strong mentally, physically, or technically, you know how to beat him or her. And of course, it's not by fighting fire with fire. So if you're fighting someone who is a great technician, let's say their technique is exquisite, then don't try to out-technique them. Instead, strive to focus more on their weak spot. Maybe they don't have a strong mind, so you can do that psychological warfare that Muhammad Ali or other great fighters do before a fight. So it's important to not only understand yourself, but also who you're fighting against, or who you're going up against, okay? Your opponent or enemy. Depends on if you're doing it for sport or for the street. And then finally, instructor. If you're an instructor or a teacher, you can use the Shin Gi Tai framework for your students. Because usually, if we are karate instructors, we teach people and we usually judge people and think that they are like us. Subconsciously, we want to be objective, we want to see everybody, but it's very difficult because we are not logical robots. We are illogical human beings, and we have feelings and stuff. So, do this for your students, or have them write down what they think is their strong point, their weak point, and their medium strong point. And then take their notes, look at them, and say, I don't think this is true. Because you might have these juxtapositions, right? One student thinks he or she is super skilled in one department, but you actually think something else. And then you know what to focus on, or what to practice on when it comes to that specific student. This is especially good if you have students who are aiming for a higher level. And remember, the important thing is not that any of these is particularly high, but that they're all balanced. So you can have Shin Gi Tai on a low level. Shin Gi Tai. They are in balance, right? Yet they are on a low level. But this, to me, is a better karate practitioner than someone who has one super high, but the other low, or one medium, one high, one low. The important part is to have your strengths and your weaknesses on the same line, and then gradually, if you're a teacher, strive to build them up. Strive to push down, or not emphasize the strong parts, and strive to push extra hard on the weak points of your students. And I actually, for my own students, I write this on the whiteboard, and I have them come up and then just assess themselves. And of course, a lot of people have difficulties being honest with themselves, but for others it's easy. They know that, okay, my mind always gives up. That's my weak spot. And then it's interesting to see how your group differs and how you can have subgroups within a group. Because here's the interesting part. Let's say someone is weak when it comes to Tai, the physical. Or let's say someone is strong when it comes to Tai, the physical. Then what within the physical is their strong part? Because nobody is perfect. So even though a person has Tai, or the physical, as their strongest point, there might be weak parts within Tai. So let's say that when it comes to the physical stuff, I am really explosive, okay? I'm explosive, I'm fast and powerful. But my weakness when it comes to the physical stuff is my flexibility or my softness, or my ability to relax, which of course is also a physical attribute, even though it has with the mind and technique to do also, because all of these are interconnected at all times. So once you identify your strong and your weak point, then you should go into those and see, okay, so what within these points can I work on to improve even more? Because even though, let's say, your technique is your strong point, you might have weak techniques within the technical aspect. So let's say you're good at doing high kicks, but you're not really good at grappling. That could be a technical problem, even though your technique is your strongest point compared to your mindset and your physicality. Okay, so that's it. This is how I describe and apply this Eastern martial arts principle or philosophy of Shin Gi Tai. And I highly suggest that you assess yourself so you can determine what your strong point is, what your weak point is, and ultimately achieve the perfect balance in Shin Gi Tai, mind, body, and technique, for yourself as a student, for your opponent if you're an athlete, and for your students if you're an instructor. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions, if anything was unclear. This is actually the first time I try to explain this because it's all in my head from before I wrote this. So maybe everything is not easy to understand at first. So please let me know if you have any questions about this or anything you want me to expand on. Just reply in the email for this episode. That's it. Have a great week. Train hard. And remember, it's not just about the practical stuff, but also about the theory. That's bunbu ryodo in Japanese, the pen and the sword. Bye.